I'm Gene Grant here in the studios of New Mexico PBS with our Line Opinion panelists. We have three important topics on the show this week, of course, but there were a lot more news stories we wanted to cover. I'd like to give each of you a chance to bring up one story that didn't make the cut, but you think is important to pay attention to this week. And Daniel, I'll start with you. What's your one story you've been looking at this week?
Oh, the one story I've been watching is how completely tone-deaf Urban Meyer in Ohio State University is. I mean, if you watched his comments last night, you know, when they asked him, what would you say to the wife? He literally took a second look at the camera and said, "I'm sorry, we're all in this together."
Right.
I mean, I don't know how, with the hashtag Me Too movement, things that are going on, I don't know how you can be a guy making $8 million a year, have a coach that you've hired that not only did this on your watch, but clearly did it prior to you hiring him. You lie to the media about it. You call out a reporter and basically pull a punk card on him and challenge him. And then you get shown this, and your defiance in the press conference is just, it's palpable how this guy is just so tone deaf.
Is the university's response adequate to you for the...
I thought the president had a great response. I thought the president did a great job. I thought that he was very academic. I thought the athletic director, he's the only guy who took any responsibility. He just
a bottom line person.
And said, "Look, I'm the guy that buck stops with me."
That's right.
And Urban Meyer is literally the most tone deaf human being on the face of the planet, other than Jack that I heard on the radio this morning. They called him from Florida. He's running a very close second to Jack.
Well, he's going to get a little dinged in the wallet too, Mr. Meyer. Jeffrey, what do you think? What's been going on this week that caught your eye?
Not so much a story per se, but more a trend, a disturbing trend. I call it the United States of America is becoming a myth because of all the dichotomization between the polarized factions on the left and the right. It used to be 30, 40 years ago, if you didn't like Nixon, obviously there was some vitriol there, but you voted him out of office. But now these personal attacks on your opposition, as opposed to criticizing policy, there are these factions that criticize on both sides the individual.
Was there any in particular that kicked off this thought that you saw?
I've been thinking about it a long time, but calling Trump, Hitler. I mean, Hitler was responsible for essentially, 50 million people died in World War II. You can't use that kind of terminology and attack a president, notwithstanding how much you don't like the guy, and equate something that heinous in the history of womankind to an individual. But just the personalization, the absolutism that's happening with our country. And I surmise that in 20 to 50 years, there will be such civil discord that we may be on the throes of civil war. And when that happens, you may have regions in the United States, no longer states. Maybe the West Coast area would be more fraught with the whatever the liberal agenda is. Maybe the East Coast might be whatever it is. But I think we're on the threshold of true civil discord to the point where we may be facing civil war in the next 30 to 50 years.
Well, it's happened before.
This vitriol doesn't discontinue.
But on your point, I've gotten into it on Facebook with friends to say you really need to pump the brakes on this Hitler thing. You know what I mean?
Right.
And people are like, oh, I know. It's like, no, stop saying it publicly. It's crazy. You can't compare the two. The president and someone who, like you mentioned, is crazy. Adrian, what's been going on this week? What have you been seeing?
We were talking about it a little bit earlier, but what's going on with Donald Trump's inner circle, with two of his closest allies either being convicted or pleading guilty to some serious crimes at the encouragement of the president. It makes me think about some of the very serious decisions that the presidency allows Mr. Trump to make, and I'm really worried about how those decisions will have impact for generations on women, on labor unions, on working families, on LGBTQ people, on communities of color. And so, for me, this situation disqualifies the president from being able to name a Supreme Court justice in this situation.
The infamous split screen day we'll never forget. I was at home watching too. It was amazing watching someone get indicted over here, someone getting, it was crazy. Sophie Martin, what's been going on this week for you?
There are two big stories in New Mexico that are big picture stories.
Yeah.
One is the Legislative Finance Committee has come out and said that the legislature will have a bunch more money to play with at the start of next year.
What are they saying a bunch? What's the prediction?
You do this to me every time. You don't do it to me every time. It's
almost 1.8 to 2 billion.
Yeah, almost $2 billion. Thank you. I'm always like, million, billion, it's one of the two. Million would not have been a big deal.
Million.
Lots of zeros. So I mean, compared to the budget as a whole, that's not like, we're rich.
Right.
It would be nice to have lottery winnings like that as a person, but as a state, it's something to work with.
Right.
And our new governor is going to have some ability to present budgetary priorities. Our legislature is going to be able to do more. The second story, of course, is the Republican polling that suggests that the two gubernatorial candidates, Michelle Lujan Grisham and Steve Pearce, are basically neck and neck right now. So both of those, I think, big stories in terms of where do we want our state to go next? What are our priorities?
Good point.
Whichever governor we get, they're going to be dealing with the legislature they've got. We don't expect a real change in our legislature.
Let me ask you a question before we wrap this up. Would you anticipate with this new money, the lesser angels coming to the surface and having a big spending spree, and the legislature saying, "Oh, we need to make up for 10 years worth of."
Why are those the lesser angels? I mean, you say that, but it could just as well be we need to start priming this pump. We need to invest in our citizens. We need to invest in our infrastructure. We need to make sure that that spending is appropriate, and I mean that in a plus way, not a minus way, for our state's health.
Absolutely. Thank you all. Good stuff.